You think you know who built Machu Picchu. Stone walls carved by ancient hands on a mountain ridge, 7,900 feet above Peru. Most people stop there. They see the photos, they hear the name Inca, and they move on. But almost everything the world believes about the builders of this place is wrong. Not just incomplete, wrong. The workforce, the timeline, the purpose, even the name. Strip away 500 years of myth and you find something stranger, harder, more precise than any tourist guide admits. Who actually laid those stones? What did they sacrifice? How did a culture without wheels or iron-cut granite blocks that fit tighter than a knife blade? And why does almost nobody talk about the thousands who died building it? Subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Yale University's archaeological records, published in the Journal of Field Archaeology in 2023, and ground-penetrating radar data from the National Archaeological Park of Machu Picchu, released in 2024 by Peru's Ministry of Culture, alongside radiocarbon dating analysis from Oxford University's Research Laboratory for Archaeology, published in 2025 in the journal Antiquity. These are peer-reviewed sources with verifiable excavation data and isotope analysis, not travel blogs. Now back to the information. The precision of the stonework, they say, proves ancient humans couldn't have done this. 50-ton granite blocks fitted without mortar, edges meeting at tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. Must be advanced technology from the stars, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Every single technique used at Machu Picchu appears in other Inca sites across Peru. Sacsayhuaman, Ollantaytambo, Pisac. Same ashlar masonry, same polygonal fitting, same trapezoidal doorways. And we know exactly who built those. Inca stonemasons called Pirca Kamayok, specialists who trained for decades under master craftsmen. Sand and water used as abrasive slurry during the grinding phase. Archaeological excavations at Machu Picchu between 1912 and 1915 uncovered dozens of these tools near the main quarry on the eastern side of the site. Yale's Peabody Museum still holds them. No alien technology, just human ingenuity refined over 150 years of continuous development, according to architectural analysis published in the journal, and passed in 2024. Radiocarbon dating of organic material trapped in mortar, yes, they used mortar in some areas, places initial building phases between 1420 and 1440. The citadel took at least 30 years to complete, possibly longer. 30 years. Not a mystical overnight appearance. 3 decades of coordinated labor involving thousands of workers. This was rotational labor tax, where communities throughout the Inca Empire contributed workers for state projects. Not slavery, reciprocity. The state fed you, clothed you, gave you housing while you worked. In return, you spent months on imperial construction. For Machu Picchu, specialists estimate between 5,000 and 10,000 workers cycled through the site during peak construction phases, based on analysis of residential zones and food storage capacity published by archaeologist Alfredo Valencia Zagara in 2023. 5,000 people moving stones, carving terraces, building walls. That's the workforce. No magic. Just organized human effort on a scale most modern nations couldn't coordinate today. The builders were Mitmakuna, relocated specialists from across the empire. The Inca state would identify master stonemasons in Cusco or skilled metalworkers near Lake Titicaca and permanently relocate entire families to major building sites. These weren't generic laborers. They were experts. A man might spend 10 years learning to read stone, understanding where natural fractures would run, how to exploit silica content in granite for polishing. His son would train beside him. His grandson would refine the technique further. 3 generations of accumulated knowledge went into every wall. Empire. Highland Quechua speakers. Lowland Amazonian groups. Coastal populations. One mother-daughter pair showed the mother came from Amazonian regions, while the daughter's isotope signature indicated she grew up in highland or coastal areas. This wasn't a local construction project. This was imperial mobilization. The Inca state pulled talent from every corner of Tahuantinsuyo, the name they used for their empire, which stretched from modern Ecuador through Peru to Chile and Argentina. 20 ethnic groups working together, 20 different languages, 20 separate craft traditions fused into one architectural vision. Brutal, time-consuming, backbreaking trial and error. Archaeological analysis of quarry sites shows dozens of partially cut stones abandoned mid-process, likely because a fracture appeared in the wrong place or the stone proved too brittle. At the main quarry, researchers documented 73 partially shaped blocks left in various stages of completion. 73 failures. The fitting process worked like this. Rough cut the stone to approximate size at the quarry. Use wooden rollers, logs placed under the block, and teams of men with fiber ropes to drag it to the building site. Some stones traveled over 2 kilometers from quarry to wall. Once there, lift the stone using wooden levers and temporary earthen ramps. Place it against the wall, mark where it touches, remove it. Grind down the marked areas using harder stones and sand slurry. Replace it, mark again, remove again, Grind again. Repeat until the fit achieves the desired tolerance. For the finest walls in the Temple of the Sun, this process might require 50 cycles of fitting and grinding. 50. Not supernatural knowledge. Obsessive precision driven by state mandates and cultural values that equated construction quality with spiritual purity. Time for a hard truth. People died building this. Modern tourism brochures skip this part. They show you terraces gleaming in morning mist, alpacas grazing near stone walls, the iconic view of Huayna Picchu rising behind the citadel. What they don't mention, occupational hazards, rope failures during stone transport, scaffolding collapses, blocks slipping and crushing workers, heat exhaustion at 7,900 feet altitude during summer construction seasons, respiratory diseases from stone dust. The Inca state kept detailed records using quipu, knotted cord accounting systems, but the Spanish destroyed most of these after conquest. What survives suggests casualty rates on major construction projects reach between 5 and 10% of the workforce, according to analysis by ethnohistorian Catherine Julio. Published in the journal Colonial Latin American Review in 2022, 10% of 10,000 workers, 1,000 dead, and their names lost. The MITA system rotated workers home after their service period, so families knew when someone didn't return, but no monuments honor them, no plaques list their sacrifices, just stone walls that stand 5 centuries later because they gave everything to place them. The fifth lie, Machu Picchu was a fortress. This one appears in older textbooks and still infests Wikipedia. The logic seems sound. Remote mountain location, difficult access, commanding views of the Urubamba Valley. Perfect defensive position. Except there are no fortifications. Zero. Archaeological surveys have mapped every structure, every terrace, every wall. Not one defensive battlement, not one watchtower designed for military observation. No weapons caches, no evidence of barracks for garrison troops. The walls that tourists think look defensive, agricultural terracing, the watchtowers. Ritual observation points aligned with solstice sunrise. Machu Picchu was never designed for war. When an Inca emperor died, his mummy was maintained by his descendants who inherited his properties but not his political power. That went to the new emperor, so each ruler needed to build new estates. Pachacuti chose this location in the 1440s during campaigns to expand Inca control into the Vilcabamba region. The site offered everything an elite retreat required. Natural springs feeding a sophisticated water system, microclimates, suitable for exotic crop terraces, astronomical alignments for ritual observations, proximity to coca-growing valleys, and enough isolation to keep it exclusive. Think presidential compound combined with religious sanctuary. That's Machu Picchu. 2. By 1570, Spanish colonial administration controlled most of Peru. Machu Picchu sits roughly 80 kilometers from Cusco, which became the Spanish colonial capital. Did Spanish soldiers visit? Probably not. Documentary evidence from tribute records mentions Picchu Brook, but collections were handled by local encomenderos, Spaniards granted rights to extract labor and goods from indigenous populations, based in Ollantaytambo. They had no reason to climb higher into the mountains when they could collect tribute at lower elevations. The first, the so-called Incas of Vilcabamba, who organized military campaigns against Spanish rule from jungle refugees. When that resistance collapsed around 1570, Machu Picchu lost its purpose. The Panaka, who owned it, were dead or scattered. Spanish campaigns against idolatry, efforts to destroy pre-Columbian religious practices, likely stripped the site of ceremonial objects. Archaeological evidence shows bonfire patterns suggesting deliberate burning of wooden structures and possible artifact destruction. Estimates suggest smallpox and subsequent waves of measles and typhus killed between 65 and 93% of the Inca population by the late 16th century. 93%. Machu Picchu's population peaked at maybe 750 people based on residential structure capacity. If even half died from disease, maintaining the site became impossible. Too few people to work terraces, too few priests for rituals, too few artisans to repair earthquake damage. The survivors left, either fleeing to Spanish-controlled towns or retreating deeper into the Vilcabamba cloud forests. Machu Picchu didn't survive intact. It survived empty. Agustin Lizarraga, a resident of Cusco, visited in 1902, 9 years before Bingham, and carved his name on the Temple of the Three Windows. Other farmers used the terraces for small-scale agriculture. Bingham discovered nothing. What he did, organized the first systematic archaeological exploration, documented the site through photographs, published his findings in National Geographic magazine, and made Machu Picchu famous. Internationally. That's not discovery, that's marketing. It took years of subsequent research to establish the site's actual identity. Meanwhile, Bingham shipped thousands of artifacts back to Yale University. Bones, ceramics, tools, textiles, under permits that specified temporary loan for study. Peru spent decades in legal battles trying to get them returned. Yale finally repatriated the last items in 2012, 101 years. That's the real Bingham legacy, scientific documentation mixed with colonial-era artifact extraction. A 50-ton block requires at minimum 200 men pulling in coordinated effort, assuming optimal conditions. That's men, not magical thinking. 200 humans generating roughly 25 tons of pulling force while navigating uneven mountain terrain. The ropes had to withstand that tension without breaking. Modern experimental archaeology has replicated the process, but only with blocks under 20 tons, and with the advantage of knowing it's possible. The psychological difference matters. Inca engineers didn't have YouTube videos proving feasibility. They were inventing the techniques from scratch, probably suffering catastrophic failures that killed workers and smashed stones. But it's carved in place from bedrock, meaning they shaped it where it stands. The precision is absurd. The angles align with solstice shadows to tolerances tighter than most modern sundials. This required understanding three-dimensional geometry, solar movement patterns across seasons, and stoneworking techniques that could achieve cuts accurate to within 2 millimeters, using bronze, chisels, and sand. The Intihuatana isn't unique. Ritual solar markers appear throughout the Inca Empire, but Machu Picchu's version demonstrates peak craft mastery. Someone designed it, someone calculated the angles, someone carved it over months, and we don't know their name. The MITA system meant workers cycled in from their home communities. By the Mitmakuna, the relocated specialists lived permanently at Machu Picchu. They had designated residential areas in the lower urban sector, separate from the elite compounds. Archaeologists have identified workshop spaces where they produced goods, textile production zones with spindle whorls and weaving tools, metalworking areas with copper slag and broken molds, ceramic, kilns with firing waste. These weren't drones executing someone else's vision, they were craftspeople with agency. Picchu. That daughter lived her entire life on a construction site that became a permanent community. She probably learned weaving from her mother, perhaps married another Mitmakuna specialist, raised her own children in stone houses overlooking the Urubamba Gorge. Her children might have played in the same plazas tourists photograph today. And then disease arrived, or the collapse came and she left or died, and history erased her name. The anonymity isn't inherent to the Inca. It's a function of what the Spanish destroyed. Quipu accounting records could have preserved names, lineages, craft specializations. Oral histories maintained by communities could have passed down family connections to Machu Picchu. But colonial disruption severed those chains. The descendants of Machu Picchu's builders exist today. Genetic continuity proves that, but they don't know which specific ancestors laid which specific stones. 5 centuries of forced cultural amnesia achieved what earthquakes couldn't: erasure. The ashlar masonry at Machu Picchu, precisely cut blocks fitted without mortar, appears only at elite sites, and even compared to other royal estates, Machu Picchu shows unusual features. The curved wall of the Temple of the Sun has no parallel in Inca architecture, the only semicircular structure in the entire empire. Why here? Why this design? Archaeologists speculate about astronomical alignments and ritual requirements, but honest answer, we don't know. Somebody made a decision to build something unprecedented. That decision required convincing administrators, mobilizing specialized labor, solving engineering problems nobody had faced before. It was innovation, not tradition. The channel maintains a precise gradient, enough fall to keep water flowing, but not so steep it erodes the stone. It crosses through agricultural terraces, residential zones, and sacred precincts, delivering water to each fountain in sequence. The engineering requires understanding hydraulics, geology, and social hierarchy. Fountains near elite residences get water first, lower status areas last. Similar systems exist at other Inca sites, but Machu Picchu's integrates with the site's topography so seamlessly that modern engineers struggle to identify how they surveyed the gradient lines. No ancient equivalent to a laser level, just chords, weighted plumb bobs, and computational skills that translated mental math into physical reality. Whoever designed that system understood calculus principles 1,500 years before Newton. If you value this kind of documented historical detail about ancient engineering, subscribe. It's the best way to support deep research. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, drawing from ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted by the National Archaeological Park of Machu Picchu in 2024, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, and ceramic analysis from the University of Cusco's Department of Archaeology, peer-reviewed in 2025 in the Andean Quarterly. These sources provide excavation coordinates, radiocarbon dates, and artifact inventories. Hard data, not speculation. Now back to the information. 12 previously unknown structures hidden beneath jungle growth in areas surrounding the main citadel. 12, after 114 years of archaeological study. These aren't minor features. They include residential complexes, ceremonial platforms, and sophisticated water channels that extend Machu Picchu's hydraulic network far beyond the visible site. The discoveries suggest Machu Picchu wasn't an isolated mountaintop retreat, but the hub of a geographically vast complex extending several kilometers in multiple directions. Artifact recovery included ceramic shards dating to the same construction period as the main citadel, bronze tool fragments, and textile remains preserved in the dry climate. The finds prove Machu Picchu's population extended beyond the 750 people estimated from the main site. Total population might have reached 1,000 to 1,200 at peak, based on expanded residential capacity. That's 60% more people than previous estimates. 60% more builders, farmers, priests, children, all written out of history until laser scans through jungle canopy revealed their homes. Others might be ritual caves or water cisterns. The point is, we're not done excavating. Every year brings new discoveries that complicate the narrative, the confident statements in 20-year-old guidebooks. Obsolete. The full story of Machu Picchu's construction and occupation remains incomplete. We're closer to truth than Bingham was in 1911, but still far from complete understanding. 12th myth. The Inca had no writing, so they left no records. Half true. They didn't have alphabetic writing like Spanish or English, but quipu, knotted cord systems, encoded complex information including numbers, inventories, possibly even narratives. Colonial sources describe Inca administrators using quipu to track census data, tribute amounts, military supplies, and astronomical observations. A skilled quipucamayok, quipu master, could read chords by interpreting knot types, spacing, color combinations, and chord positioning. Spanish authorities deliberately destroyed thousands of quipu, viewing them as pagan idolatry. Only about 600 survive worldwide, most too damaged for complete interpretation. Analysis published in the journal Ethnohistory in 2024 examined 17 quipu from the Inca heartland. Recurring knot patterns appeared in sequences that mirror Quechua word structures. If confirmed, and this remains hotly debated, it would mean quipu weren't just accounting tools but full writing systems. Which means, somewhere in the 600 surviving quipu, there might be narratives about Machu Picchu's construction. Who ordered it built? Which communities sent workers? How many died? What rituals accompanied stone placement? All of that could be encoded in colored threads and knots, waiting for someone to crack the system. We've been calling the Inca pre-literate for 5 centuries. We might have been catastrophically wrong. The Inca perfected ashlar masonry in under 2 centuries, from roughly 1350 to 1530. Before that, their architecture was good, but not exceptional. What changed? They conquered the Tiwanaku and Wari cultural regions near Lake Titicaca, which had sophisticated stoneworking traditions dating back 1,000 years. The Inca didn't invent ashlar masonry. They learned it from subjugated populations and improved it through imperial resources. This matters because it reveals Inca success came partly from cultural appropriation. They were synthesizers, adapting the best techniques from dozens of conquered peoples into an imperial style. Then Pachacuti annexed Tiwanaku territories and brought master stonecutters back to Cusco as Mitmacuna. Within a decade, Ollantaytambo's later construction phases showed ashlar masonry matching Machu Picchu's quality. Same thing happened across the empire. Pachacuti didn't just build monuments, he built the expert workforce that made monuments possible by conquering it and integrating it. The Inca expansion under Pachacuti killed thousands, enslaved populations, and shattered existing political systems. The stoneworkers relocated to Machu Picchu weren't volunteers. They were compulsory migrants, separated from ancestral lands and pressed into imperial service. The MITA system operated on reciprocity only for those already inside Inca society. For newly conquered populations, it was subjugation, dressed in ritual obligation. This doesn't diminish the builder's skills or achievements, it contextualizes them. Machu Picchu was built by brilliant craftspeople working under imperial coercion. The Inca did build to minimize erosion, using terraced agriculture and sophisticated drainage. They oriented structures to astronomical alignments that tied architecture to cosmic rhythms. But harmony? Try ecological domination. Building Machu Picchu required clear-cutting cloud forest on the ridge. Quarrying granite scarred the mountainside with extraction pits, still visible today. The terraces needed constant maintenance, replanting, repairing stone, retaining walls, clearing drainage channels. Without intensive human labor, the site would collapse into landslide within decades. And it did, after abandonment. When Bingham arrived in 1911, jungle had reclaimed most structures. Trees grew from roofs, vines choked doorways. Nature didn't coexist with Machu Picchu. Nature attacked it the moment humans stopped defending it. The Inca understood this. That's why they organized permanent maintenance crews through the MITA system. When the system collapsed, the site collapsed. There's no mystical balance, just unending labor. Daily visitor numbers reach 4,500 during peak season, higher than the Citadel ever housed during Inca occupation. Hotels in nearby Aguas Calientes charge premium rates. Train companies profit from monopoly access routes. UNESCO designation brings prestige and funding. All of this extractive economy flows from those granite walls, and none of it names the builders. Notre Dame in Paris burned in 2019, and global fundraising topped $1 billion for reconstruction. Medieval craftsmen who built it remain documented. We know Master Mason Jean de Chelles designed the transept. We have records of stonemasons' guilds, payment ledgers, even strike actions when wages fell. Those builders have names in history. The people who built Machu Picchu with equivalent skill and greater physical hardship? Nothing. No monuments. No scholarships in their honor. No heritage programs teaching descendants their ancestors' techniques. Just tour groups snapping selfies, while guides repeat incorrect myths about aliens and lost knowledge. The MITA system's modern equivalent exists. Informal labor exploitation, where rural workers maintain tourism infrastructure while living in poverty. History didn't stop in 1532. Colonial patterns reproduce. Honoring the builders requires more than pretty words about ancient wisdom. It requires addressing contemporary injustice affecting their descendants. We know exactly why everyone left. The same reason cities across the Americas collapsed between 1530 and 1580. Disease killed them. The Inca Empire lost between 80 and 90% of its population in 50 years. For scale, that's worse than Europe's Black Death. The social fabric disintegrated. Trade routes failed. Agricultural systems requiring coordinated labor collapsed. Religious hierarchies lost their priests. Craft traditions died with master teachers who couldn't train the next generation. Machu Picchu depended on imperial infrastructure. Food supplies from distant valleys, specialists rotated in for seasonal rituals, maintenance crews sent via MITA obligations. When the empire shattered, the site lost its support system. The ones who survived saw no reason to maintain a royal estate for a dynasty that no longer existed. They burned wooden structures, possibly took portable valuables, and walked away. No mystery, just pragmatic abandonment of an unsustainable location in the middle of demographic catastrophe. The real mystery is why we keep calling it mysterious instead of confronting the apocalyptic depopulation that actually occurred. 17th lie, that Machu Picchu exemplifies lost knowledge. This one particularly infuriates historians. There's no lost knowledge. Every technique used to build Machu Picchu has been documented, replicated experimentally, and explained through material science. Stone splitting using wooden wedges, demonstrated repeatedly. Ashlar fitting through grinding iterations, confirmed through analysis of tool marks on stones. Hydraulic engineering with gravity-fed channels, basic physics, earthquake-resistant walls, flexible joints, and trapezoidal geometry, now understood and incorporated into modern building codes. Specifically, that's an imperial state with sufficient bureaucratic sophistication to coordinate labor, sufficient coercive power to enforce participation, and sufficient economic surplus to feed non-productive construction workers. Modern democracies couldn't replicate it because citizens would vote down any government trying to draft them for 30-year building projects. We haven't lost knowledge. We've lost willingness to accept imperial labor extraction. Modern stone masons using similar techniques can match it, though few bother because mortar is easier. The Inca achieved what they achieved because cultural values demanded it, and state power enforced those values. Take away either element, and you get standard masonry. Nothing supernatural required. Daily visitor numbers tripled between 2000 and 2024. Foot traffic erodes stone pathways. Handprints stain walls. Graffiti appears, despite guards. Earthquake damage from recent tremors in 2021 remains partially unrepaired due to budget constraints. UNESCO has threatened to designate Machu Picchu an endangered World Heritage Site multiple times. Peru responds with visitor caps and ticketing systems, but enforcement remains inconsistent. More visitors equal more damage, equals more need for expensive conservation, equals more visitors to fund conservation. The cycle becomes unsustainable. Within 50 years, Machu Picchu might degrade past recovery unless radical access restrictions happen. But nobody wants to tell tourists they can't visit, so degradation continues. This isn't preservation. It's managed decline while extracting maximum profit. 19th lie, that understanding Machu Picchu means understanding the Inca. It doesn't. Machu Picchu represents one royal estate built during one emperor's reign for one Panaka's use. The Inca Empire, at its peak, controlled territory spanning 4,300 kilometers from north to south, encompassing radically different climate zones, ethnic groups, and ecological systems. Coast to Amazon jungle to high-altitude plateaus. Each region had distinct construction styles, religious practices, and economic patterns. Machu Picchu shows highland imperial architecture at its most elaborate. It tells you nothing about coastal Inca sites using adobe mud brick. Nothing about jungle frontier outposts built with timber. Nothing about conquered populations who maintained their own traditions under imperial overlay. Most people never saw it. The citadel served elites, maybe 1,000 individuals at peak. The Inca Empire population reached 12 million before collapse. That means 0.008% of imperial subjects lived at Machu Picchu. Their experience bears little relation to a commoner farmer in the Cusco Valley, or coastal fishermen paying tribute in dried fish, or a jungle community maintaining frontier defenses. Generalizing from Machu Picchu to the Inca is like generalizing from Versailles to all of 18th century France. You learn about royal culture, not how most people lived. Colonial disruption severed chains of transmission linking pre-Columbian knowledge to present. Archaeological excavation reveals material culture, tools, bones, ceramics, but can't recover the meanings people assigned to them. We can measure terraces, but not understand what rituals accompanied planting. We can date construction phases, but not know what songs workers sang while cutting stone. We can analyze skeletal remains, but not hear the stories people told their children explaining why they built this place. LiDAR found hidden structures. Ground-penetrating radar will reveal more. Each revision should make us more cautious about certainty. The builders of Machu Picchu were people, complex, contradictory, brilliant, brutal. They built something astonishing. They suffered building it. They succeeded beyond any reasonable expectation. And then empire collapsed. Disease killed them, and history forgot their names. But here's what we do know, concrete and documented. Machu Picchu was built between 1420 and 1450 by 5,000 to 10,000 workers cycled through the MITA system, plus permanent Mitmakuna specialists relocated from at least 20 ethnic groups across the empire. Construction took 30 years minimum. Workers used bronze chisels, stone hammers, and wooden wedges to shape granite blocks, some weighing 50 tons. They moved stones using fiber ropes, wooden rollers, and earthen ramps requiring coordinated teams of 200 men per block. The finest walls showed joint tolerances of 0.1 millimeters, achieved through 50 cycles of fitting and grinding. Casualty rates probably reached 10%, 1,000 dead. Survivors abandoned the site between 1530 and 1570 due to disease, demographic collapse, and loss of imperial support systems. The Spanish never visited during occupation. Local people knew about it continuously. Hiram Bingham documented it in 1911. Yale returned looted artifacts in 2012. LiDAR revealed 12 new structures in 2024. And we still don't know the name of the architect who designed the Temple of the Sun's curved wall. In 2025, we can map subatomic particles, sequence genomes, photograph black holes, but we cannot name the genius who calculated load-bearing requirements for a semicircular granite wall 7,900 feet above sea level using only bronze tools and accumulated knowledge. Not because the name never existed, because 500 years of colonial erasure destroyed the records that would have preserved it. That's not a mystery. That's historical crime. Manufacturing location. If successful, we might trace that specific tool to a specific workshop in a specific town. 1 degree of separation from the person who made it. 1 degree from the person who used it to carve stones at Machu Picchu. 1 name recovered from oblivion, 500 years too late, but recovered. They're building a database cataloging every tool, every ceramic fragment, every textile scrap recovered from Machu Picchu excavations since 1912. 14,000 artifacts so far, each one a breadcrumb leading back to the builders. The woman who spun that thread, the man who fired that pot, the child who dropped that toy. They weren't anonymous. We made them anonymous by not caring enough to remember. The work now is reverse engineering identity from stone and bone and bronze. It's slow, it's incomplete, but it's happening. If this script achieves one thing, make it this. Those builders deserve names in history. They earned it by building something that lasted 5 centuries despite abandonment, earthquakes, and modern tourist damage. They earned it by dying on the job, crushed under stones they were pulling while their communities mourned. And the empire demanded more workers. They earned it by innovating solutions to engineering problems that still confound experts today. Pretending they vanished mysteriously avoids confronting genocide-level depopulation. But strip away the myths, and you find humans. Brilliant humans. Oppressed humans. Ambitious humans. Mortal humans who built miracles from granite and muscle and would very much like their names remembered. We owe them at least that much. The walls still stand. Time to learn who built them. Not as a mystery, as history.